Hey, welcome. This is The Process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is Snap Report weeks 3 back to 1. So we're covering 1, 2, 3. This is for the Science of Fantasy Football.com. This report will be there. Check it out. I'm going to do a shortened report, get to team usage, and then the very deep uh, player snaps. Maybe I'll do a second video if people are not interested. Because again, a lot of this, I make figures and it's me apparent as to what one should get out of it. So that's why I don't sit there and go on and on kind of like now. Okay, so let's move. Rule of thumb is chase the volume and not the points, not the touchdowns, the volume. And so I believe, and I haven't done the research yet. It's probably a good aspect to do research on, but I think it's a starting point. And if you've heard any of my discussion about top down versus bottom up, streams of data and how both add to the picture. People constantly are losing uh, information. If you focus, right, you've got to narrow down and there's things lost. So I think by doing both approaches, you can maybe eliminate information loss. And I think that will help you have a deeper understanding. At least that's the thinking that I have. So the first topic, I change this around a little bit each week. We're talking team speed versus actual game points scored here. That's not PPR points. This is game points. Okay. I hadn't done that, but I think knowing the team speed and point efficiency, I think that gives you that edge. And this is the actual figure I just made up. I have the table metric, but I just made a bar graph of it and colorized the top teams in green, kind of above the league average in scaled points per second of offensive play there. So you can, and it's, you can take a look at it. It's probably not overly surprising. Imagine Baltimore, Detroit, Kansas City, Miami, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Atlanta. Uh, and I probably should have said Carolina, Jacksonville, Cleveland. So I think to me, the only surprise I got was Atlanta has been doing as well. So that's interesting. I think that might, people may not have a, a stronger view of Atlanta, but I'm not sure with uh, London Drake and Pitts and Cordell Patterson. That's kind of the three pieces. I'm not sure, you know, how available they will be as far as trades or anything. Maybe daily fantasy sports or something. Bottom teams, and you can probably figure this out too. Indianapolis, Denver, Green Bay, San Francisco, Dallas, and New Orleans. All those have bits and pieces missing or injuries or the combinations are not clicking. There's a lot of things in the first 3 weeks that have conspired in those uh, teams. Maybe some opportunities in there may be some concern and whatnot. I mean, if you can kind of filter through it, you might find a bargain or two here. So I just mentioned Atlanta. I thought that was interesting, a little surprising for me. So move towards the top. efficient teams that are scoring points per second, and probably move away from the players in the bottom teams. And I would caution, this is just 3 weeks of data. The thing in fantasies, you're almost forced to jump quicker than you should. In other words, if you wait too late, the opportunity's gone. So we get a lot of false positives. That's what we say in science, is you think it's better than it is, but it really isn't. But if you wait, then the ones that are the diamonds in the rough, they're gone. So that's why people are constantly jumping back and forth and around, and in their lineups and in their teams. There's a constant churn, and that's what it is they're taking in the bench and churn. That's pretty much what the more seasoned players do. So if you're not a seasoned player, that's another little tip, is especially playing in situations where there's a deeper bench. A lot of people, what we call, churn that bench. And so I would churn towards the more efficient teams and away from the bottom teams. And there's lots of information out there, but I would just urge you to consider, use the diary concept, start thinking about things, and making some notes about what you're doing, why you're doing. I think it's all critical when you look come January, after the season's over, kind of look back in the cold reflection there. Hopefully you do that, and that's what the deep winter is for, is thinking, getting kind of ready for the next season. At least that's what I do. Okay. The next piece of information that I use is positional usage as measured by uh, team positional snaps. And I define the usage as a percentage of the total average. I think this allows us to visualize. So you actually get a visual view of the RB, the TE, and the WR as to how the teams have been distributing snaps, and the oh, made a mistake there. Should be week 4. Uh, my bad. Maybe I'll correct. Maybe I won't. I think people will know. And so this is the video I'm recording. So the metric tables: team name, position, average of the player snaps over the 3 weeks, and positional usages. And then I use a bar graph, and I have then the red bars highlight the uh, positions, and the yellow triangles or green trend lines hit how the team's overall positional pattern is. So let's take a look. Arizona, Atlanta, Baltimore, Buffalo. And if you look at positional usage, and my rule of thumb, for instance, I usually start with wide receivers. Close to 50% is something that I'm thinking that's pretty good. And you can see right away that Arizona has put a lot of its eggs in the wide receiver basket. Look at Atlanta, 33%, Baltimore, 31%, Buffalo, 38%. So right away, you see there's a big strategy difference on how the teams are behaving. This may be a reflection of the team players, what they have on hand, the coach's strategy, kind of what's happened in the first 3 weeks. It's still in flux, and you just monitor that. So the table does kind of show you, take a look at Atlanta and Baltimore's tight ends at 39%. Look at Arizona, 22%. and Buffalo's at 38. So in a lot of ways, those three teams are really trying to use their tight ends a lot. And how does that look? We actually see that Arizona is pretty much all about that wide receiver. You can see the pattern there. Whereas Atlanta, Baltimore are all about that tight end usage. And of course, Baltimore has lots of running with their quarterback, and uh, that he's really scoring and efficient there. And the wide receivers are being used less than any of these other teams, but they're pretty efficient. Buffalo is using wide receivers and tight ends about the same. So uh, I think Buffalo's defense doesn't require them to go and fly out the ball a lot like Arizona has to. So it kind of gives you an idea of what the teams are. Imagine if Buffalo uh, looked like Arizona. Wow, would the wide receivers probably getting more play, not less? So going back to Atlanta, they did have pretty good efficiency, scale points per second of play, but their wide receivers, they've got Drake London, that's about it. Nobody else is really getting involved. And so that's when you look at the other wide receivers, that's kind of masking the one wide receiver. So all the pieces are very obvious what they are for Atlanta. It's not, a bunch like Arizona. You have Brown and Dortch, right? Buffalo is Davis, McKenzie, Diggs, of course. So you have more of a split there of activity there, and that kind of winds it out. So you can look at the table. I'll go to the visual here. And let me show you what Cleveland looks like. Notice it's a kind of a straight line, and you get RBs pretty high, by the way. I mean, look at that, almost 30%. And you see right away that Arizona's about 30% as well. So that's pretty good for Cleveland there. But I like that straight line pattern. Cincinnati's mimicking that. Chicago would like to, but they're not very efficient in that, and they're not really utilizing their wide receivers at all. And that is a big issue for Chicago. You would think their tight end would be doing a lot more, but Chicago's kind of floundering here. That's it's a nice, it's an intriguing pattern, but it's not doing what they need to do here. In Carolina, all the eggs, kind of like Arizona, are in the wide receiver basket. Notice the running backs, Christian McCaffrey's just below 20%. Look at that. What is going on? I don't know why they're doing that. They are not utilizing him at all like they should. Think about if he was getting to use his Cincinnati or Cleveland with Chubb or Mixon. Mm, mm, mm. So, in the right team, CMC would have been better, but this year's Carolina team, not as if I could have seen this pattern, right? If we can all go back, I think I would have considered who I was drafting first. Okay, here is Dallas. Dallas has had issues, and take a look. It's they hadn't been hitting their wide receivers like they need to. They're kind of balanced in some ways, And I don't think that's actually what they need. I think they're putting too much on the tight end, and they should be more wide receiver heavy there. But with Dak gone, this is kind of what they're morphing into, and I just don't think that's an efficient pattern. Denver, Russell Wilson's putting all his eggs in the wide receiver basket, folks. There it is, a lot like Carolina. Detroit trying to do that straight line. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And Green Bay is way different team. It's all about the running backs here. Look at that. Uh, Tight ends, they've forgotten about wide receivers a little bit. They just don't have that strong crew, so they're putting all their eggs where they are at in the running backs. So Aaron Rodgers is not going to probably produce like he has in previous times here. So if you hadn't figured it out, I use these patterns to drive my thinking about the team. So you can go back and look and see. For instance, if I had any shares of Tanyan, still I don't even draft one share of him. But if I'd had, I think you could find other tight ends somewhere else that on a team that is different, right? Something, but that's not going to do you a lot of good. Houston, if they could just kind of get better, I do like their pattern and distribution, but just hadn't put it together yet. But I do like that. Indianapolis is not a most efficient pattern. They're not using their, and I guess if I had Jonathan Taylor, I'd use him a lot too. But the tight ends, I know last week we had Woods, the rookie, stepping up, but he didn't get a lot of snaps compared, and looks like Pittman. So it looks like it's Taylor Pittman, and they're kind of not using their tight ends. Jacksonville, a lot of the same patterns here, except a lot more towards the wide receivers. So Zay Jones is and Kirk are going to get targets here. So if you got those guys, it's time to get them. I think that's what that's pattern telling us. Kansas City, not liking to see that they're having to rely on Kelsey. Would be nice if they could get this in a more of a straight line here, and they're not. So that they're not being as efficient as Kansas City could be. So there is a limit to the wide receivers there. The patterns here, like the Chargers pattern, just a little low on pretty much all players. I would like to see, uh, you know, some more usage in the wide receivers here, I think. The Rams are really compact and nice straight line, but it's just Cooper Cup is not being used like he needs to. I don't know what's going on there. It's just nice pattern, but it's just low. Raiders all about those running those wide receivers, folks. I mean, Waller's getting his, but not enough because they're putting all their eggs here, and the running backs are kind of weak. Weakness, just like Eckler, and the Chargers are weak sauce. So we got some teams that are not putting their strengths forward at all. They're trying to manage their weaknesses, and that's sad. Miami, look how balanced that is. That's almost the same with the running backs and the wide receivers. Uh, I think they could be even more efficient with their wide receivers. If they could turn this around a little bit. So, I mean, Miami's been doing well, no doubt. but I'm just not a big fan of this pattern here. It just, to me, I think it needs to be a little bit more tight end and wide receiver and a little drop down in the running backs here. I think I want to see a straight line, and I'm not seeing that. So I don't think Miami is as efficient as they could be, at least how I see that. Minnesota, it's all about Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne last week. Cook, probably not being what he needs to be, the tight end. I know everybody's talking Irv Smith, but weak sauce here, folks. New England, uh, it's doesn't look good to me. That is not a pattern of strength here. It looks like they're trying to compensate RB and tight ends for their wide receivers that are not doing what they need to do. New Orleans, low, kind of a straight line, but not really, and just kind of low across. I mean, Kamara below 20%. You come on, is not good. It's and the wide receivers. I'm really think New Orleans is not doing what they need to do. Certainly, the Giants a lot look like a lot, except they're using Barkley better than the Saints are using Kamara. Look at the difference there. So that's sad sauce there. Sad sauce. Uh the Jets, if they could move their wide receivers out, they're talking about more air yards there. Of course, they may get a quarterback change, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. They've been using their running backs a lot at 30%. Tyler Conklin has been a surprise this year, and that's nice. So you're getting the straight line, but they cannot put the wide receivers out there. If they could ever connect, that would be big time. In other words, Philadelphia has a very interesting, strong pattern of success there. And Pittsburgh actually is not too far off. They're just low across the board. They're just not doing what they need to do to distribute the snaps here. But I do like the usage pattern. It's just the snaps. They're not, just being efficient, kind of lowly efficient. Seattle, it's that's a sign of weakness again, kind of like the Jets are showing us that same kind of blah pattern on the wide receivers. And I don't think that spells goodness for the next few games here. So I like to definitely watch how the wide receivers are being used. And I think that's a key since we're a passing league here. And finally, here, San Francisco is trying to make their wide receivers work, but they're really putting a lot of their eggs in the running back. And Kittle has not been there, and I don't know, did he play last week? I don't know. They need to really shift their usages here. Tampa Bay is in trouble as well, folks. Tampa Bay is trying to play the Green Bay game and put it on their running backs. I don't. Fournette doesn't have a partner to push it forward, so it's a three-legged situation there instead of four. So that I still am very pessimistic about Tampa Bay. Tennessee has the right pattern. It's yeah, they could up their wide receiver game. Maybe they will. Tannehill needs to get it going and just increase their overall efficiency. Washington has been putting all their eggs in the wide receiver basket and running backs almost 30%, kind of like San Francisco. I mean, it's good. Like Gibson, McKissick, that's all good. But something's going to suffer if you do that pattern there, and it's just not efficient. To me, closer to the Tennessee is kind of how we want to see. In other words, I'd even have, usage up in the wide receivers close to 40%. And we're not seeing that. We're below 35. Okay. So 25 minutes of me running my mouth. So I use the usage and the snap levels just to get a sense to start driving and framing a narrative. So I think you need to listen. You need to go and look at these and make notes and see who's on your team. And, if you're like me with 50, it's even harder. So that's why these landscape, I try to memorize it so that way I can just, you know, blink and try to get a sense of what I need to do for waivers and lineups on my 50 teams there. You've got to have this kind of data at the fingertip. So if you want to know what, if you're not good at memorizing, you should try to make yourself good at memorizing and having, maybe even print this out, just have copies of it. Just while you're sitting there, just kind of look at these patterns and consider what it's telling you. I think you can get a lot of information with this top down look at teams' positional usages, folks. Change the change what's going on. If you're not winning, if you're an 0-3 team, now's the time to change a little bit. Not just flip players left and right and make crazy trades. Okay? Get back to the fundamentals. Think about things. Get deeper in your thinking. Okay, this is the short version of my snaps. Maybe I'll do another video if I have time. Woo woo, we're having fun. Thanks for listening.